Should you buy, lease, or finance your car? That's what she's going to talk about in today's video. Let's see what she's got to say, and I'll give my thoughts as we go.
The question of whether you should buy, finance, or lease a car is surprisingly controversial. On one side, you may think that buying a car is the best option because it means you get full ownership of the car and it works out cheaper in the long run. But on the other side, you may think that leasing is a good idea because it means you pay far less on a monthly basis and you get to drive around a brand new car. After doing a thorough analysis and running the numbers on all the various options, I was pretty surprised at what I found and the difference in savings between going for what a car dealership tries to sell you and what is actually the cheapest option. So in this video, we're going to cover 4 of the main ways to purchase a car, what they are, which one's the cheapest, and finally, the psychological factors to take into consideration. This is part of a series of Accountant Explains videos where we discuss all things personal finance and building wealth. Part 1, what are the main options? The first way to purchase a car is just by buying it outright. Pay the full price of the car on day one, and you don't have to worry about any payments or interest going forward. Pretty straightforward. The second way to buy a car is through finance, and in the UK, this is often referred to as hire purchase, and it works in a similar way to a personal loan. So you pay a deposit towards the car, you borrow the outstanding amount at a set interest rate for an agreed period, let's say 3 years, and then over the 3 years, you make monthly repayments, and then at the end of that period, you own the car. The third way is through a lease, which is essentially like renting. You make monthly payments to use the car, and at the end of the contract, you give the car back. The monthly payments here are calculated slightly differently than in the finance option. In the finance hire purchase option, you are paying off the full value of the car because you're going to own the car at the end.
Now, listen, I'm going to say this. I said this already. Don't lease a car and don't do hire purchase, right? Buy your car outright. This is what so many people fail to realize. And again, I'm speaking to the majority of people on the planet right now, right? If you've got a gazillion amount of dollars in the bank and all that good stuff, then clearly this doesn't necessarily apply to you in the same way it applies to most of the people on the planet. Most of the people on the planet should not be hiring a car, hire purchase, not be leasing a car in any way, shape or form. You don't want a $500, a $700, a $1,000 a month car note. That is just going to keep you in financial hell, as I like to say, right? Buy the vehicle you can afford. It will put you in the best position to succeed financially going forward. Unless there's some sort of way you make money from a leased vehicle, don't do it. Now, it's funny because before we listen to what more she has to say, right, and she actually gets into it, let me know what you think as well. And regardless of if you lease right now, because I know a lot of people lease, what do you think is the best option? But I was literally having a conversation with someone recently, and they was telling me about someone who has about $1,000 a month car note and is talking about getting a different car, which costs even more money. And in my mind, I'm just like, this is the trap which so many people find themselves in. They want to drive these super flashy cars, which, yes, if you have to buy a car outright, then the likelihood is you're not going to be buying or driving the latest car. And that's okay. You know why? Because you can't afford it. When you can afford it, that's the time to really consider buying that sort of vehicle. And when I mean afford, I don't mean you can't make the monthly payment. I mean, you can't buy the vehicle outright. That's something better to aspire to dig deeper into your business, to go harder and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to put the work in. So one day in the future, hopefully soon, I can buy that sort of vehicle and it's not going to be an issue if I so choose. Let's see what else she has to say.
In the lease option, you are only repaying part of the car, and that's the part that the car depreciates during the time you have it for. You then divide that amount into monthly payments and add some fees on top. The fourth option is PCP, and for this, you set a term for the agreement, you pay a deposit, and then the company provides a final value for the car and what it will be worth at the end of the agreement. These are then subtracted from the cost of the car to work out how much the loan will be and how much you'll be paying on a monthly basis. At the end of the contract, you have a few options with the PCP. You could decide whether you want to keep the car and pay that final value. You could choose whether you want to return the car, or you can use that final value to part exchange the car. Now,
the crazy thing about what she's saying is most of this stuff is going to be confusing to most of the people on the planet. Most people understand very easily what it means to give someone some money, to be exchanged for the thing you want, and to go about your business. It's done and dusted. When you now start talking about, well, okay, there's monthly payments involved and this is the interest rate and all this kind of stuff, most people don't know about this stuff. That's why they lead with the price. You want this car? You want this car? You pay $500 a month. You pay $700 a month. Why? Because they understand that. People can understand to a certain degree, okay, yeah, I'll pay $500 a month. I'll pay $1,000 a month. Don't do it. The fact that it's confusing is one of the red flags which shows you that, you know what, this should actually be straightforward. It should be so much easier than this. But again, because you see, for example, okay, you have to pay $7,000 for a car, or you pay $700 a month. In 10 months, that $7,000 is going to be paid, but you know what? You're still going to be paying month after month after month after month. It's so powerful when you pay for something and then you know you don't have to worry about it again in the future. That frees up so much more cash and so much more mental space, mental bandwidth for you to focus on more things right now in the present, which can bless you and your family going forward into the future. This is obvious, but
now we've covered the foundations, let's go into the financial implications and the cost of each of these. So to compare apples with apples, I've done this analysis using an average medium-sized family car. So that is the Audi A3 priced at £30,000. Why did I choose this car make? Because the showroom is right around the corner from me. So I was able to go in and cross-check all my numbers and pick their brains for 3 hours straight on a fine Saturday afternoon so that you don't have to. Just a note, for each of these options, I'm using a 15% deposit, so £4,500, and a 3-year term to make it as like for like as possible. The first financing option we discussed is the hire purchase. So I put down a deposit. The interest rate I was quoted was just under 11%, which brings my monthly payments for a 3-year term to £810 a month. That means the total price I pay for the car at the end of the contract is just under $34,000. And at this point, I now have full ownership of the car. Let's assume.
So you've paid an additional $3,500 basically, and now you own this vehicle outright, which is a liability. It was always a liability, but it's not the vehicle it was when you purchased it initially.
Now I want to sell the car. I'm going to say, looking at comparables on the market, I can get £16,000 for it. Online on the secondhand car market, this car, 3 years old, is going for a fair bit higher than this, £20,000 plus. But I don't think this is an accurate representation of what we can get for the car in 3 years' time, because secondhand car prices are going through the roof at the moment. And I don't believe this will continue for the next 3 years. I think this bubble will burst before then. So if I were to sell the car for that much, then it would have essentially cost me around $17,500 to have the car for 3 years. The next way we spoke about is buying a car through a lease. In the lease option, assuming I put down the same deposit, the monthly payments are £345 a month, far lower than the finance hire purchase option because of the way we say it's calculated, only on a portion of the car and it's no interest. So in this case, to have the car for 3 years, it would have cost me around £17,000. Sometimes you have the option to buy that car at the end of the term, but this isn't guaranteed and you won't know how much the dealership is actually going to give you for that car until the last few months of the lease term, unlike the next option, which is the PCP. This is the most popular one, the one that most people take up. And one of the reasons for this is because the car dealership pushes you to take this one on because it is also the most lucrative for them. But it definitely may not be the best option for you if you are just looking at it in terms of a total cost perspective. Let's run through the numbers, putting down the same deposit. The value they said this car will be worth in 3 years' time is $15,000. So based on my deposit, the pre-agreed car value of $15,000 and interest rate, again, of just under 11%, my monthly payment would be £453. If at the end of the contract, I decide to return the car, then to have that car for 3 years, it would have cost me approximately $21,000. And if I were at that point to instead choose to keep the car and pay the final balance of $15,000, it would have cost me £36,000, the total cost of the car. From those numbers on this car, you can see if I went for the PCP option, at the end of the contract, if I returned the car, then I would have been better off just going with the leasing option. It would have saved me £4,000 nearly. The car dealership tries to sell you the PCP because it is the most lucrative for them. They make the most money from it because it encourages you to stay with them, and when the contract ends, to upgrade your car and part exchange it. So they keep making money from you. They would also try and tweak the numbers using dealer contributions or changing the deposit slightly to try and encourage you to go for the PCP option. And in some cases, it may well be the best option for you. It may work out better because you're getting a car that holds its value and you want more flexibility. But it's also important to do the calculation looking at the total cost of the car as a whole. And just
so think about it before we hear a little bit more of what she has to say, right? She's an accountant. She's breaking this all down step by step. She's telling you that these car companies, surprise, surprise, are going to promote and desire you to go down the pathway which makes them the most money and keeps you in a situation where you are pushed and prodded to stay, to continue to just re-up, right? You do a 3-year cycle, they want you to come and do another 3-year cycle. So they're going to make the most money of you in the 3-year window. But then also they're going to make more money from you because you're enticed to do it again and to keep doing it. Notice the difference between these models and just buying a vehicle outright. Now, the one thing which I would just say is missing from this situation is, I mentioned it earlier on, right? If you can't afford a £30,000 car or a $30,000 car, right? Whatever, you can't afford it. It's fine, right? You need to get out of this mindset that I need to drive the latest car because I see all these individuals on Instagram showcasing and stunting like, you know what, they've got this. The difference is they might have it, but because they might actually have it, that has nothing to do with you. And the reality is, when you're struggling to pay your car note every single month, those people that enticed you into doing it and the people in your circle that you thought, you know what, I'm going to be stunting and flossing, they don't care anyway. It's only your friends and your real friends. You'll find out who your real friends are when you get into financial trouble. And your family are the people that they don't care about what you drive, right? They want the best for you, but they're not going to be desiring you to do silly stuff. And if they are, then obviously they're not the kind of people that you need to be taking advice from in this particular area or even focused about what they actually think anyway. The reality is, if it's going to cost you, as she says, right, let's just say 15 to 20 grand, right, regardless of whatever option you take. No one says you should be driving and buying a car that's brand new. You need to drive a car that's going to be 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, something further back, because you'll be able to pay for that car outright. And this is the difference. Notice all of those cycles are 3-year cycles. There can be more, sometimes there can be less, but we're not focused on just buying vehicles in a 3-year cycle unless you have the money to do so. If you can't buy a vehicle outright in a 3-year cycle, then what's your budget, just in simple terms? Should you be buying a car which is $5,000, $8,000, $10,000? That's a car you're going to buy and not look to change within 3 years unless you've got another 5 to 10,000 for a vehicle. If not, you're going to be buying this vehicle knowing that, okay, I may have this car for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but I'm not going to be having monthly payments on it every single month because I'm going to have that cash. Firstly, I'm buying a vehicle which I can afford. And secondly, I'm not going to be having monthly payments coming out, which I can be using to invest in my business or invest in something else, which can actually make me more money in the long term. This is the difference.
To further drive this point home, no pun intended, if I decide to keep the car at the end of the contract, I would have been better going for the higher purchase option. That would have also saved me money. The other option, which we spoke about, is buying the car outright for $30,000. If we did this, and assuming we could sell it at $16,000, that price in the secondhand market, then this would be the cheapest option at $14,000 to have the car for 3 years. However, an important thing to consider here is the opportunity cost. If you put $30,000 in day one, it's locked up in the car. The alternative is if you have $30,000 and you paid the $4,500 deposit, and then you have the leftover to invest in something like the S&P 500 or another cash generating asset. The question here is, can you make a better return on that versus the additional cost of a financing option?
And I kind of touched it up myself. She obviously just spoke it out clearly as well. It's the cheapest option to buy the vehicle, right? But like I said, if you can't buy a vehicle for £30,000 or $30,000, that isn't the vehicle you should be purchasing anyway. You should be paying maybe half of that or maybe a third of that, which is completely different. So you can have a car which is nice and durable and still have money for other opportunities. One of the things which isn't mentioned, which I've kind of been stressing it in various different ways in today's video, is the mindset cost. The mindset, there's so many people online today, especially talking about their car note is off the chain. They can't afford their car note. It's so much. How many people factor that in when it comes to making this sort of decision? They don't. They focus more so on, oh, this is just the car I want for whatever reason. And then they're left to bite the bullet later on. Guys, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, do not forget to react righteously. God bless.